This video will be my review of the Garmin Edge 840. This is the Solar Edition, and at the end of the video, I'll talk about the advantages of the Solar and my experience with it. Like the review that I did on my Fenix 7 watch, I'm not going to hit every single feature of this because there are so many. I'm going to talk about the ones that I use. I'll even mention a few at the end of the video that are improvements on this that I have not had a chance to use. A lot to go over, so let's get into it. So like I said, this is the Solar Edition, and you can see the red panel around the outside. This is what it looks like compared to the 830. Unlike the 830, it is now USB-C, which I'm so happy about. So there's your USB-C cover. And I'll just mention that I use this little rubber cover just in case I drop it, which I have dropped one of these before in the parking lot. Didn't break it, but it scratched it up. So I like using one of these. One thing that's new is that you have a removable tab on the back. So this is what locks it into the Garmin quarter turn mount. But should you ever crash and break this, you can take it off and put on a new one. So the 830, that was fixed. So that's kind of cool. Like the 830 and other devices, you can attach an external battery. So those are the contacts for it. Go ahead and power on the unit. So just push the power button on the side. I will say that setup on this device was the easiest I've ever had of any Garmin. When I turned it on, it paired to the phone really easily, and then it brought over all of my activity profiles. It brought over all of my sensors and paired the sensors. So what's new for this is the fact that you have buttons and touchscreens. So this was my 830 and it was only touchscreen, and the 530 was only buttons. The 540, by the way, is only buttons, but the 840 is buttons and also touchscreen. And I'll talk about the functionality of that. So basically, you've got your up and down, your scroll buttons here on the side, and then this is kind of a menu button, and then this is your back button. Now, what I found is it works really well for a lot of things. So like I'm on this screen here, I can just scroll and select some of these different things on the screen, which I'll talk about coming up here in a minute. But if I start an activity, so I'm going to go ahead and start one here. So this is your play button right here, and this is your lap button. So these two are the same as the older 830. And so now that I've started an activity, if I wanted to scroll through the different data screens, I could hit these scroll buttons. And so it's nice to have the buttons now in case you have gloves on, or maybe your gloves are really sweaty and you just don't want to smear your screen. So I do like that option, but there are some things like, for example, the map, where it's just easier to use the touchscreen. So I can zoom in and out on the map right here. And if I wanted to do it on the buttons, I think I have to tap this button here. And I go to Browse Map. And then I can kind of zoom here. And then if I wanted to move around the map, I think I hit this button. Yep. And then I can kind of go up and down and then hit it again and go, back and forth. So, whereas if I was just using the touchscreen, so let's back out here, I could just pretty much tap the hand symbol there and move it around. So like I said, there are some things where the buttons are very intuitive. So on my watch, the Garmin Fenix watch, I could easily use the buttons or the touchscreen pretty much interchangeably. Whereas this, it's just, there are some things where the buttons are not as intuitive and easy to use. So I just wanted to point that out. But like I said, it is nice that you have both options on this device. Something else that I can do during a ride is just tap the screen. And this is similar to the 830. And I can see my battery percentage. I can see how much battery I've got left. And I can see the time. I can see the temperature. And so that's kind of cool. I can also drag down from the top. And this is something that's a lot easier to do with the touchscreen. For example, like with the buttons, I think I have to hit here. And then, no, I have to go back. Maybe scroll. No. There, I hit this button, the back button, and then I hit the up button, and then I can go to here. Once I'm here, I can either scroll back and forth, or I can use the scroll buttons. So that's easy. So like, something I could do is I could just scroll down here, and then if I want to use the buttons and scroll back and forth to the different glances, I could do that. So like I said, it's nice to have both, but I use the touchscreen most of the time. Like any Garmin device, you've got a plethora of different data fields you can show. One thing I like about this is it's got little symbols for some of the data fields. So that's my power data field, that's my heart rate data field, and you can see I've got a little power symbol, I've got a little heart symbol there, I've got a little up arrow for the ascent, so I can quickly glance down and pick the data field I'm trying to find. Also, like the Edge 830, I can hold down on a data field and I could swap it with another one. So I could tap there and it swaps those data fields, or I could just tap the data field. And again, I can do this while I'm riding, and then I could pick other data fields. So that's kind of cool. And I can't change the layout, right? I can't change how many data fields are shown and the layout of them, but I can swap those. So let's swap those back. In terms of the display size, I actually find this to be the perfect size if I'm going to have one device for both mountain biking and also gravel riding. So for example, this is the 1030 Plus, and it's obviously a bigger screen, but I didn't find this to be too small for gravel riding. In fact, I used it on my ride today. I planned a route, I followed the route. So on this, the data fields are bigger, and you could probably add one more row of data fields on the larger, 1030, 1040. Again, this is a 1030 Plus. But I find that I have enough data fields, the map's big enough, and one of my favorite things to do on a Garmin device is to plan a route on my computer, and then I have it on the phone ready to go. And if I'm heading out for a ride, I just want to use that route, I can just send it from the phone over to the device, and it's great. I love doing that with the Garmin's. But you can see the map is plenty big enough. So since this thing keeps pausing, I'm going to show you how you can go to settings. I can swipe down from the top, I can go to settings. I'm going to go to activity profiles. I'm on my gravel profile right now. And then I'm going to go to the timer, and then I'm going to take that off. So it's going to just keep playing. So it's not going to keep pausing for this video. Like other Garmin devices, you can see notifications. So there's a couple ways I can get to them. I can just tap on the screen and go back to the home, and then I can scroll here and go to my notifications. Or during a ride, what's more practical, and go back out here. If I just swipe down, so I'm riding, I want to look at my notifications, I can swipe, I can scroll over to the notification screen, I can tap on the notification, I can see it. Now the only thing you can't do is you can't respond. If you have an Android phone, you can respond with a CAN message, ones that you set up, like yes, no, maybe, riding, I'll be back in an hour, whatever. But on an iPhone, you can't do that. So I'm going to go back out to the home screen. I'm going to show you the UI of the 840. You've got a lot more information. So the one on the 830 is pretty boring. I mean, you just select your profile, go to navigation or training, whereas this, you can scroll, you can tap on navigation or training. So again, I can find courses. One thing that's really cool, by the way, is I can search for things. So if I wanted to search for, let's tap on search here. So I tap navigation, then search. I can search for bike shops, and this is new. I can search for convenience stores, restrooms, water stops, coffee shops, restaurants, recreation, all kind of stuff. You can even tap the search thing and type in something, and then once you find something, you can navigate to it, which is really cool. Again, that's new for the Edge 840. So if I wanted to go to workouts, I can plan workouts on my phone or my computer. I can go to training, I can find those workouts. There's all kind of stuff that you can do here. You can set up events, and I'm not really going to go into that, but what you can do is on your phone, you can add, I think it's an activity or a glance, and you can set an event, widget, glance, whatever they call it, and you can, tell the device when the event's coming up, and it'll give you a training plan and all that. So again, there's a lot of stuff. I haven't used that, so that's one of the things that I'm not really going to go into because I don't have experience with it. I can go to the history of my rides. Again, I can go to notifications there. I can tap on the weather. And by the way, so I'm going to go back to my activity that I had going on there, and I'll show you the weather glance here, which is pretty useful. And so I'll show the temperature. And I had this on the 830. It's just the UI is a bit better now on the 840. So that's kind of the theme, is they've really improved the graphics, the UI. So I can look at, upcoming hourly forecasts if I wanted to do that. Another improvement on the 840 is when you're navigating. I'm going to go over to the map. If I were navigating a course and I go off course, what used to happen is Garmin would automatically start calculating. And I can't show it here because I'm not navigating, but what'll happen is it'll ask you if you want to pause navigation or if you want to recalculate or reroute, whereas before it would just do it automatically. So I like that. I like that it gives you more control to recalculate your route or to even pause the navigation. So I mentioned all of the data fields. What's nice about the newer Garmin devices like the 840 is you can change your data screens, your data fields on the app on your phone. Before you couldn't do that. So I'm going to use that as a segue to show you some of the features of the app. Okay, so this is the Garmin Phone App, and it's literally like one of my favorite phone apps. I use it all the time because I use a watch and the Garmin bike computers. There's just so many things you can do with this app. But I'm going to tap on the top where I see the device, and I'm going to show you the advantages of the 840 over the 830. So first of all, I'm going to tap on the 830, and you can control some things here, not a whole lot. But if I go to the 840, I can go to my activity profiles. So let's go back to that gravel one that we were looking at. And now I can go to data screens, and I can add data screens. I can add all kind of features like the Climb Pro, which I'll talk about that at the end of this video. It's not something I've used yet. But again, I can add a data screen. I'm going to tap on Add Data Screen at the top, and I can go to data screens, and then I can select all kind of layouts. I'm going to cancel it out of there, but let me go back to my screen 1, which is what I use most of the time on my gravel rides. And if I tap on layout and data fields, you'll see that I can change my fields here as opposed to only doing it on the device. So that's really nice, something that I'm really used to on the watch, but now I can do it on the Edge 840. So I'm back out to the main screen where I can modify settings of the 840. I'm going to go to glances, and you can see now that you can add other glances from the phone app. Those are the screens that you see when you pull down from the top of the Garmin device. And so I showed you the weather, and there are a lot of other ones that you can add. You can add your event calendar. So if I mentioned before that you can have an event that you plan, and it'll give you a training plan based on how far out you are from that event. Again, I just wanted to show you some basic things of the app that are much better on the newer Garmin devices. I'll mention one more thing, and that is I'm going to go to safety and tracking, and you can add emergency contacts that can be notified in case there's an incident, and they can even track you while you're riding. So that's really cool. One of the improvements that Garmin have made in their newer devices like the Edge 840 is with Climb Pro. If you're not familiar with that feature, it basically predicts a climb coming up, and it'll tell you how far you have to go to the summit, how far of an elevation gain you have to go to get there, and then the average gradient coming up. It's not something that I use a lot because I live in a flatter area, but I intend to test it on the 840 coming up this summer when I get up to the mountains to ride a bunch. So the improvements that have been made are the fact that you no longer have to load a course into the Garmin to predict the climb. It'll look at the road that you're on, and it'll see climbs that are coming up based on the direction you're headed. Now, if the road splits, it'll predict kind of where you're going to go based on where most people go on that road. And you no longer have to load your course into it, and it just uses, like, all the climbs are already loaded into the device. And it's pretty mind-blowing that not only do you have all these maps in here, but you've also got all the climb data. And so again, that's an improvement. All right, so the last thing that I'll talk about is the solar feature of this. So this device is $550 US. The regular non-solar 840 is $450, so it's $100 more. Do I think it's worth it? So I did a ride today, a gravel ride that was 4 hours and 13 minutes. It was 66 miles, and it was in sunny weather. I used 14% battery. That's a pretty huge improvement, and that was with 3 sensors paired. I had a heart rate monitor paired, I had the Garmin Rally pedals, and I had the Varia, the radar, which is right here with the light built in. So and sensors drain the battery even more. So it definitely reduces the battery drain on the device. Now, as I mentioned with the Fenix 7 watch that I reviewed, because this is the solar edition of the Fenix 7, you can't really like set the thing out in the sun and expect it to go from 0 to 100 in an hour or two. That's not the way it works. You can put it out in the sun, but you're probably going to gain a percentage or two over 2 or 3 hours. So like I mentioned in this watch review, it's not like you can go on a camping trip and set it out in the sun for 3 hours and charge it up. It's just not how it's intended to work. it's intended to reduce the battery drain. So it's up to you whether or not the $100 is worth it. If you're doing really long, epic rides and you don't want to put the external battery pack underneath the Garmin onto these little contacts, then I do think you would be able to take advantage of the solar. You also are taking it off the bike less to charge it. And again, that's assuming you ride in sunnier conditions. If you're riding in cloudy or night or whatever, it's not going to matter. But for me personally, I do like the Solar Edition, and it's worth the extra $100. So that's going to wrap up my review of the Garmin Edge 840. Garmin have made some really nice improvements in the UI. It's USB-C. It's got improved features, and I really love the fact that you can do more on the phone app than on the device itself. How about you? Have you used this? Have you used a Solar Edition? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do so, and give this video a thumbs up. It does help out my channel. Thanks for watching.